I'd like to welcome again my panelists. I'm looking forward to this conversation. As has been mentioned, we're going to be discussing sustainable cloud architecture in Africa. And why this is important is if you were here at the beginning of today's session, when Mayowa from McKinsey presented, she mentioned some specific pillars that are required to grow and deepen the penetration of financial services in Africa. And one of the things she mentioned was infrastructure. Now, in Africa, we understand that we have a major infrastructure deficit. And that is why cloud technology is a very interesting topic, because it basically enables African companies, globally, of course, but in Africa specifically and in Nigeria, it does enable a lot of companies leapfrog the infrastructure gap. And that's what we are going to be discussing. We're going to be looking at cloud architecture, its impact, its usage. And I'm excited because we have a wide range of speakers here from the provider side and also from the user side. So without much ado, we're going to go straight into it. So I'd like to welcome you again. Bolahon, you are welcome. Shegun, you are welcome from Cora. Nice to have you. Rockway, you are welcome from Huawei. And of course, Stephen, you are welcome from InkPay. So we're going straight into the questions. So I'd like to start with you, Mayowa. Can you help us, just for the purpose of the audience, what is cloud technology? What really is cloud technology?
Okay, let me briefly introduce this question. So for the cloud, it consists of four main components. First is the cloud resource pool. It consists of computing, storage, network, and this cloud resource pool is elastic extension and help you to prepare your use. Okay, this is the cloud resource pool. The second is the cloud service layer. For the public cloud, we can provide more than 100 cloud services, include the basic virtual machine, block storage, file storage, database, AI, big data, essential. Okay. The third is the cloud operation platform. It provides the basic console, billing system, and also marketplace, which enable you to serve service to use those cloud services. Okay. The last is the cloud maintenance platform. So it consists of the basic monitoring system, the basic AI ops platform, the ticket system, and also some high availability architecture, which enables you to use cloud very stable and to ensure the SLA of your workload. Okay. I think this is just a brief introduce the cloud architecture.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that, Rob. And I'd like to come to you, Stephen. What would you say are the business benefits of cloud technology in Africa and Nigeria? I mean, we're very conscious that we have an audience from over 50 countries, so we're not just talking Nigeria here, we're talking across the world, but really bringing it home to Africa, what are the business benefits of cloud architecture?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Let me just break it down because I understand some of our audience are not technical. Let's take this event as an example.
All right.
We are here. We came for an event and we championed the event. We own the content of the event.
Okay.
But here we are sitting. Nobody's worried about if the AC is working.
Okay.
We're not worried about if power is right. Am I right? So cloud services is infrastructure, IT, basically as a service. So if you take this event center as an example, that is the infrastructure.
Okay.
We are here just to consume the space for this period, and then we go.
Okay.
The owner of the infrastructure still owns it. So let me take it back to IT. So traditionally, what an enterprise company would do is for them to be able to do anything, for them to run maybe applications, deliver services to their customers, they have to procure some IT equipment. Now, what cloud services brings to the table is instead of you providing and spending that CapEx on procuring those IT equipment, services, and all that, what you do is that you pay per use.
Fantastic.
So the major thing here is, in terms of business benefit, is CapEx versus OpEx. So instead of spending $20 million, $10 million, buying IT equipment just to make sure that your business keeps running, you pay a certain amount of fee, and then you get the same effect. Now, secondly, one of the things that cloud services also brings is there's something we call agile provisioning. So traditionally, if I want to bring up a service, and let's say it's a software application, maybe a fintech application, traditionally what I would do in a traditional environment is I will place order for servers, switches, all those IT, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So from the original equipment manufacturer perspective, it takes about 6 months. These days, because of chip shortage, it takes about almost 12 months to come. So you have to wait 12 months. Now, when it comes, you have some time to set it up, which may take another 2 months, 3 months to set it up. So that is time wasted. When we say agile provisioning, for most services that are based, that are cloud native or that are based on cloud infrastructure, you can actually provision, if you have your application ready today, you can provision within 24 hours.
Fantastic.
So that gives most businesses faster time to market. So, and that faster time to make market means that you can actually have a competitive edge over whoever that is trying to do it the traditional way. So those are just 2 of the main points, but maybe I allow some of the panelists to talk more.
Thank you so much.
From the business side, you can look at
Thank you
this.
so much, Stephen. You said you basically talked on the financial advantage it gives to smaller businesses. And again, remember, we're talking within the context of Africa, where there's not a lot of capital to throw around. So that's definitely value. You also talked of faster time to market. Again, we are sitting in a room talking of fintech, we're talking of startups, we're talking of small companies that want an edge. So definitely this is a very relevant solution. So I'll quickly move to you, Bolahan, from Main One. Now, we cannot talk about infrastructure, internet infrastructure in Africa without mentioning Main One. So thank you. And I would like to say, as a provider, can you just give us an overview of the peculiarities in the development of cloud architecture in Africa, while also still touching on 1 or 2 business benefits?
Okay, thank you very much. The cloud environment, if we look at Africa, cloud has developed over time, but it all started from somewhere, which was connectivity. Most people today are enjoying their phones, they're enjoying a lot of applications, because the connectivity has improved. Now, when Main One and companies like us started, our goal was to improve the connectivity bit of Africa, to ensure people can consume data more effectively, efficiently, and drive growth. Now, when you move from the layer of connectivity, you now move into the space of data centers. Data centers pretty much says, how far away am I from where this data I'm consuming? As it stood before, a lot of our data that we were consuming from outside Africa. Even till now, we are still consuming quite a number of it from outside Africa, and that's the reality. But as we've moved into the cloud architecture and cloud computing, we've realized that there's a need for data centers to be established in Africa. And as a result of that, a lot of companies have started investing in the data center space, by extension, the cloud space. And what do I mean by the cloud space and data center space is moving your infrastructure to a data center where you can actually consume these cloud environments as pay as you go, like he said, in an agile manner and all of that. But we here know the famous cloud providers. We know Microsoft Cloud, Azure, we know AWS, Amazon Web Services. Even them have understood that Africa is the new market. Africa is growing in data consumption. As a result, a lot of them have started making significant investments in coming to Africa. Microsoft is in South Africa, 2 data centers. AWS announced they were going to South Africa as well. We also, in the western part of Africa, have made significant investments in data centers. Main One, for example, rack center for another one. And as a result of that, cloud computing is becoming a lot more local. People are now willing to invest or buy resources and services, like he said, knowing that my data is local. I know where my data is. And that's a fundamental conversation of cloud computing and cloud consumption, because everyone wants to move from the traditional way of consuming data, which, what he said, on-premise, traditional data, I buy my servers, my compute, I make significant investments. Now I can host those infrastructures in data centers localized. As a result of that, I can also still consume those resources on a pay-as-you-go model. But the advantage is you now have businesses that have connectivity, you have large cloud services providers that are coming local, and with that mix, the cloud architecture has changed for Africa. And even specifically to West Africa now, we have likes of our company, Main1, having 3 data centers across West Africa. We have in Nigeria, we have in Ghana, we have in CIV. And all these data centers are connected via submarine cable, interconnected to all of them. So when we talk of latency, consumption of your data, it's a game changer. And as a result of that, we see increase in adoption of cloud services locally. And if these large companies see that data is being consumed locally, traffic has increased, more investments will be done in that space. So the likes of the big cloud service providers will start coming not only to South Africa, they will start making presence in West Africa, they will start going into North Africa, and they will collaborate with existing infrastructures or existing companies that have done it before, or local presence that have done it before. And why do I say collaboration? Just to close it. It's because of the data sovereignty, GDPR, NDPR conversation. When you have a local company that is doing this infrastructure and you are partnering with them, that space, it enables them navigate the waters of policy, governance, regulation, compliance. And companies like that make the adoption of fintech services, knowing that fintech is switching financial transactions locally, you need to also be able to prove to them, or to some degree, that you have local infrastructure that exists. So all this tied into the African cloud architecture means that it's important and it's the way to go. Companies need to invest in that space. We are investing in that space. It's not everybody that will be a fintech company, but some people know that there needs to be infrastructure to run the fintech company. And I think that's the space we see there's value for the fintech space.
Thank you so much, Mayowa. And I mean, you said a lot, but what I see, to me, it's a picture of hope. The fact that, like you said, a lot of people, people have seen that there is progress in Africa, and the fact that infrastructure services are now being hosted on the African platform. One, it's definitely coming, as the time goes, with the trajectory, the cost will definitely reduce for the small companies. So that's why I said it's a story of hope. So for the small fintech out there that may be grappling with infrastructure costs, this is definitely a positive story. So I'd like to move to you, Olusegun, as a user. As a user I would like to ask you we've talked a lot from the infrastructure side. Now let's talk about it from the services side. What will you say for cloud technology? How do you see this impacting the delivery of services and solutions in Africa?
Okay, so just like the other speakers said earlier, it's now, you've taken away the responsibilities of having to manage data centers, procure this IT equipment, and you basically have cloud services available, or cloud providers available for you to access their services and then create your solutions. So I think the most important way it has actually improved things, especially as a user, is I can easily get access to these cloud services just through my browser, through a console and through my browser. So it's easier for me to manage. It's easier for me it makes it easy for us as startups to focus on what is core to our business, rather than worry about security of on-premise infrastructure. I think it also makes it easy for us to get to markets much faster, because with less things to worry about. Because the truth is, managing data centers whether it's on premise, right, adds some operational overhead. So by taking that out, you can direct your resources to things that are core to your business, and then with things that much less things to focus on, you can actually provide value much quicker, right, and get to market much quicker, and then you can focus on delivering value to your customers as well as to the business as well.
Thank you. Now, I'll stay with you for Coral Pay. I know you have you are one of the leading, when it comes to growth, you guys are growing really fast, and that's great. And I know that your growth is you're not just looking at Nigeria, you're looking across Africa. I would like to ask again, when you consider the journey of your business, speaking specifically as a user now, and I'm saying this for the purpose of other fintechs in the room that are thinking, oh my gosh, how do I grow? What are the foundational things I need to have in place? Do you want to share, again, just some personal experiences that you have had in Coral Pay and how cloud technology has helped you scale, say, on a particular instance? That would be very helpful.
All right. So looking at, we started with an idea, right? And of course, because of cloud services, we don't need large capital investments. Right, these things are available on the pay as you use basis. So we could just start with the ideas, experiments. Let's even test this out. And when it started making sense, and maybe the attractions, we could easily scale. Because again, the benefit of using cloud services is it's very easy for you to scale. It's elastic, exactly. So as activities grow, as you have more customers, more people to serve, you can easily scale. Like even for us, I think it was late last year that we had to re-architect our infrastructure just because we saw that there's growth, and there's also the potential for much growth. So we had to re-architect so that it's easier for us to support the growth that we were already seeing coming to the business. So I think that's a very, very key thing. There's also the security. Mm-hmm. Security is a very, very important thing, and as a financial service provider, security is at the core of what we do. So it's easier to set up security around the infrastructure, who has access to this. And I think another important thing is because it also gives you the opportunity to expand globally. So whether as you want to focus on the local market or reach people outside Nigeria or even outside Africa, it's easy for you to expand your services across the globe.
Thank you so much, Engo. Now, Rock, I'll come to you now. Huawei made a presentation before this panel, so we can see that you have a wide suite of solutions, and you guys are focused. You are the head of pre-sales in southern part of Africa. So I'd like to, Segun mentioned something about security. I'd like to ask your experience with respect to from the security aspect and how that, in line with cloud technology, which is what we are talking about today, shared infrastructure. How, from your experience, have you been able to secure your solutions, even though you are pushing cloud technology as a platform?
Okay, I think it's a very good question. When enterprise consider move to cloud, I think the most important thing to consider about is the security. So for the security, I think we should consider into two aspects. First is the security compliance. For example, fintech era. So for a fintech company, when you want to move your workload to cloud, so you should consider the regulator requirements, all right? And also some, for example, PCI DSS certification essential. Okay, I think security compliance is very important for you when you consider to move to cloud. So for example, for Huawei cloud side, we have achieved more than 100 cloud compliance, security compliance all around the world, include the ISO 27001, PCI DSS, and also Nigeria, NDPR, and also the Central Bank of Nigeria requirements. Yeah, we also fulfill meet those requirements. Okay, this is the security compliance. The second is the security capabilities. So for Huawei's cloud side, we provide the physical security, the cyber security, and also security maintenance, okay, for our talent, for our clients, okay. And we also provide more than 50 cloud security services covered from the host security, data security, security maintenance, and security governance. For example, the situation awareness to help us to load the workload status, the security status, okay, to help you to meet the requirements from the regulator, from your customer. Okay, I think this is some best practice we can provide. And we also publish some security best practice in our official site. Later, I will share you a book, the Cloud Adoption Framework. In this framework, we also provide some security, security practice. Okay.
Thank you so much. And I believe after this session, if you want to have access to that book, you can walk up to Rockway or any of the Huawei staff. I believe you have a stand outside, and so you can have access to that. Now, it's fantastic when you talked about 100% compliance on security. I think that's very comforting. So we'll be wrapping up now, and we cannot end without talking of, we've talked of fantastic cloud technology adoption, and but let's talk about the barriers. There are definitely barriers. That is the reality. So Mayowa, I'll come back to you now, and I'll say from your perspective as a major service provider, what would you say are some of the barriers that must be overcome for the adoption of cloud technology in Africa? Bolahon, thank you.
Okay. For cloud adoption in Africa, I'll just put it into different buckets. I would say there are organizational factors, there are human factors, regulatory factors, and security and compliance, governance factors as well. Those are critical things you need to look at in terms of barrier to cloud adoption. And taking them one at a time, the human factor is, do we have the skill set to move to cloud? If you have a business, do you have the engineers that can support your cloud infrastructure? Do you have the competencies to be able to move to cloud effectively? That's one. So in order to move to a cloud journey or to embark on a cloud journey, you need to know what you have and where you are going to. If you have people that you need to upskill, you need to train, maybe those are things you need to do because that's a barrier to progressing to cloud. If you look at it from an organizational standpoint and an organizational mindset, you need to know that people are starting from a position of on-prem infrastructure. I own my boxes, I see my boxes, I hug it before I go to bed, and all that. But the environmental factors such as power generation, forex issues, general security issues, and just end-of-life additional total cost of ownership investments would make you also look at it to say, should I keep this infrastructure or should I consider moving to cloud? Now, that's another barrier that we're looking at, that we always encourage our customers to say, do the total cost of ownership of your infrastructure. You've bought this infrastructure, they are 3-4 years, they are end of life. Do you want to move to a cloud environment where you can now start taking these resources on a pay-as-you-go model? Can you look at your total life cycle of your business? Like my gentleman said there, I said, let me focus on what my core business is, as opposed to managing boxes and all that. So that's something that we pride in telling our customers to say, move away from owning this, try and come to this side. Then speaking to the security side, which is also very important as a barrier to entry. Organizations today have a lot of compliance they have to embark on, right? And these compliance and licenses and security, they cost a lot of money. Having certifications for PCI DSS, ISO 27001, BCP controls. A lot of these are infrastructure or investments that the amount of fintech companies here, if they individually go to certify on every single level, it's a barrier for them. So moving away from that, going to an ownership model where you go to a data center or you go to a cloud service provider that is PCI DSS certified, that is ISO 27001 certified, that has roughly 10 layers of security. I mean, that has NDPR compliance. Those things are things that you can just request for, present to the regulators or present to those that matter, and they will say, okay, you know what, this is enough for you to operate and to remain efficient. So looking at all these sort of benefits and barriers, for every time someone wants to not consider cloud, for every time you want to make an additional investment in infrastructure, just take a step back and say, what is my competition doing? The time to market, how fast are they? How more nimble are they compared to me? Compared to the procurement process of buying these boxes. He's started, he's running, he's earning money already. And all the things I need as an organization, such that I will succeed, does that data center service provider or does that cloud service provider, do they have those boxes? Go and check, take the box. Once you find out and you're there, then, I mean, moving to cloud should be seamless. And those are barriers that I see Africa increasingly overcoming as people, I mean, there are a lot of tech environments, foundries, and a lot of tech engineers out there. People are knowledgeable, people are smart, people are advanced, people challenge the status quo. So in terms of skill development, it's here, it's now, we have them. In terms of the environment to host your data center or host your cloud services, we have them. In terms of connectivity in Africa, definitely in Nigeria, we have them, and we have a lot of it. So just putting everything together and tying it into the global space is once we are connected to the world, either through Africa or through the data centers locally, to the world, you are connected to everything. I mean, if you want to scale globally, for example, MainOne is an Equinix company now. Equinix is our parent owner. They have 240 data centers across the world. They have 10,000 interconnections, over 10,000 interconnections across the world. So when you are even consuming infrastructure globally, by virtue of you connected to MainOne Fabric, you are connected to the world. And you're connected to any service provider, any connection you want at any given point in time. So what you just need to focus on is your application development and making your money, just as he said, and looking for investors. So that's the way we see it, and that's the barriers mentally people need to overcome. That it's not a business of infrastructure; it's a business of financial services provider for people, individuals to generate money. Leave the other guys to handle the infrastructure bit.
Thank you so much, Bolahon. And I mean, you just said it, that it makes sense for you to outsource that infrastructure headache to the infrastructure providers. And I love what you said, that the infrastructure providers they have the capacity. So really, when you talk of cloud architecture, it's really talking about trust. Can you trust your infrastructure provider to carry this weight for you? But from what you said, looking at the matrices, looking at the numbers, there is no reason why a small business should not be able to trust. Really, so the barriers have really been overcome. Maybe because it is not the traditional way of doing business, it's still in a lot of people's mind. But like you mentioned, when you started with skill, you talked of the issue of skill. Tomorrow we are going to be looking at the issue in Africa about skilled staff work, the skilled workforce, and the fact that in Africa, well, this skill is available, but we know there's a lot of pressure. Every day somebody is japping, and that when you outsource infrastructure services, it actually takes that burden off you. And what I love about what we are discussing, cloud architecture. Yes, we are talking about it on the infrastructure level, but people today are talking not just outsourcing infrastructure. You can outsource service provision. You know, like at InterSwitch, we have a solution called Banking as a Service, where you are basically outsourcing, you know, the core things you will do if you want to just kick off banking services quickly. So this issue of outsourcing is definitely here to stay. And so as we round up, you know, I'll come to you, Stephen, and I'll ask, you can use this as closing comments, you know, from your experience at Inc. and your prior experience, because we know you've been in the industry for quite a while. This these barriers have really been overcome. But what will you say in Africa are the one or two things that we still need to do to accelerate the adoption of cloud architecture in Africa and in Nigeria specifically?
Okay, thank you. So I think the first is more sensitization. It is true that today a traditional CIO or CTO in a fintech company is more knowledgeable
Yes.
than most other business sectors. So many of them I have interacted with, they ask the right questions. They're asking you, okay, now I'm moving away from managing the compliance myself. What are you guys doing to manage this compliance? So as a former Vodacom business, one of the things that we have done in Nigeria is we have followed that trajectory and we have been always at the forefront of technology. So one of the things that we do for most of our customers is managed services. So he talked about skill set. You just talked about skill set. Is a very big barrier.
Yes.
It's a very big barrier. And as these big cloud providers are coming, the little that we have, they are poaching
I
them.
understand.
Yes. So one of the things that we are doing is having those skill sets in-house, ensuring that when you sign up a customer, you deliver based on what you've signed.
Okay.
And one other thing again is, from my interactions and from experience, because I'm also hands-on, when it comes to security, I know we've talked about a lot about compliance and all that. Security services for cloud applications is a shared responsibility. And if you check most of the security publications, breaches, cyber security attacks over the past 5 years, most of them are non-infrastructure related.
Okay.
So the application has to be built with security in mind. So there is something that we call a security first approach.
Okay.
So as you are building it, you have security in mind. Because yes, we the service provider can secure your infrastructure. We can put the firewalls there, put all the things that are supposed to be there. But if there are vulnerabilities in the application, you can still be hacked. So security is a very, very big concern for most fintechs, most financial institutions, anybody that is doing anything with money, especially in the fintechs, and especially when you're talking about blockchain, because if the money vanishes, it has vanished.
That's it.
You can't trace it. In fact, you won't be able to trace it. So, so it's a major challenge. So it's a shared responsibility. It's a shared responsibility. So one of the things that we do is we have that skill set. We have followed the trajectory. The infrastructure is there. Just like Bolahan said, the infrastructure is there. Most of those that have been around in the industry know that these are no longer barriers, so to say. What we're now doing is educating the CEO, the stakeholders, that these things are now here. You don't have to go to Europe to access some of these services. They are here. The data centers are here, just like he said. A lot of other companies have made a significant infrastructure, investments here in Nigeria and across Africa. So those things are here. The major thing that we now need to do is, just like we are seeing in this panel, tell the customers, the consumers, that we have these services. Talk to us. We have the expertise. You don't have to worry about so many things. All you just need to worry about is start making your money. And as you're making your money, of course, we are also making our money. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I just like what you said about it is a joint partnership. So even as much as you outsource, I like what you said about infrastructure can be secure, but the applications must also be secure. So it's really a partnership. And I also love what you mentioned about awareness. So thanks to Nigerian FinTech Week, we are driving awareness this week. And after this, we are going to continue doing so. And as we do so, it's going to come to a time in the future when on-prem will be something that has not been heard of, because it just makes sense to get up and go, face your own business, outsource to the experts what needs to be outsourced. Fantastic. And the final closing mark, I'll ask you, Segun, as a user, to give it to us, for that fintech out there that is saying, how do I start off? What is a word that you're going to give to them? You being a user that has started and has scaled. And that's our final word.
So I think the first question is, should even adopt cloud, and I would say big yes,
Okay.
because I think it's the next phase. There are a lot of benefits. I mean, we've talked about the different benefits of adopting cloud, but I think for most, maybe for large enterprises, for startups, I think it's easier. I mean, we don't even. I think we really think of on-prem, right? It's cloud by default. So I don't think it's an issue for startups to adopt cloud. For large enterprises, there are ways you can, migrate in phases. So we have the hybrid approach where you can run some of your resources, on-prem, while you run some of them, whether in the private cloud or in the public cloud. Of course, I understand that there are regulatory requirements. Those things, like a lot of industries are, highly regulated. So you also want to ensure that whatever cloud architecture you go with is in line with the regulatory requirements. But so you can identify, the ways, like you can come up with a cloud architecture that works for you within the boundaries of your regulation. Like I mentioned, hybrid approach, and there's also the multi-cloud, approach where you can even deploy your solutions on different cloud providers, because I believe there's an ISO requirement that speaks to that. So there's a lot, you gain from it. It's easier to also meet some regulatory standards, like PCI DSS. I think it's much easier when you are in the cloud, because some of those responsibilities will be handled by the provider, while the others will be handled by you. And just like he said, there is a shared responsibility. So that you can move in phases, right? But I would recommend it for anyone. Just adopt the cloud. It will pay you a lot. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So we've come to the end of this panel, and I'm sure there's meant to be some opportunity for Q&A. But if we go back to the theme of this conference, where we are talking of the next normal, sustainable impact and emerging technology, I believe that this panel has contributed our own quota to show how cloud technology is definitely a new normal. It has come to stay. And not just that, it is a sustainable approach for the African fintech to get into business quickly and in a cost-effective manner. So thank you so much to my panelists, and we are open to questions. I don't know, moderator, we have the compare. How are questions going to be? I mean, are people going to just ask questions, or do people write their questions down? Thank you. Oh, we have some lengthy questions here, if I say so myself. All right, fantastic. We have a question here from Adejumo Ibukun. Thank you. And the person says, how true is the belief that every cloud infrastructure or service resides in a particular physical location, as against on cloud, as the name implies? Saying, is it wash, or is it real? That's what the person is asking. So I don't know. Bola, do you want to take it? Yes.
It's a very great question there. The definition of cloud in itself is just saying it's somewhere, but it's not where you can see it.
Okay.
But it's somewhere. Every data has to be somewhere. But what we are saying, when it says cloud infrastructure, it's that data. So most people don't understand that for every data application, whatever we are using, the internet sphere, as we call it, is resided in a particular place. The YouTube we go to is resided in a particular place. Mm-hmm. The Facebook we access, and whatever infrastructure we access for transactions, is resided in a particular place. But because maybe the users don't know where that space is, or the person does not physically know where that location is, we ascribe the word cloud to it. And that's the way you should just look at it. There's nothing you're doing on your phones right now, on your computer, or whatever transaction or processes you are doing that is not going to hit a physical box somewhere. It's just, the difference is that physical box is not sitting in your house or it's not sitting in somebody else's house. It's sitting in an environment that is highly regulated, highly controlled, and designed to meet that business need. I don't know if you want to add some things to it.
Okay, thank you. So it can be verified. So from a technical standpoint, there are a series of tests, because I've spoken to a couple of customers. I've asked, are you sure this thing is not in Europe or somewhere in the US? So there are a series of tests that you can do from an IT perspective to know exactly where the data is. So, and when a customer says, or when a provider says, your data is so and so place, you can verify. Yeah. So it is something that is verifiable. And we encourage customers to also verify. Yeah. Just like he said, you verify and tick those boxes, before you move ahead. So it's something that can be, verified. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I hope that answers your Adejumo. You can also meet our panelists after this for more insight. And we have a final question that talks about the security of personal data. And it's saying, to what extent is cloud technology and services provided on cloud technology platform safe? To what extent do they safeguard personal data? Rockby, do you want to try that one, please?
Okay, I'll try to answer this question. Because when your data stored in cloud, you can choose to do the data encryption. Okay. We provide the basic capability. So you can encrypt your data first and then store to the purchased storage. Yeah, I think this is very easy to acquire this. Okay. The second, for most of the data may be stored in the database. So when you store your data in the database, you can protect your database. We provided, for example, for Huawei Cloud, we provided the DBSS database as a service. So security service. So this kind of service can just filter some aggressive data and give some encryption when you store in the database, and also provide the compliance from PCI DSS, help you to meet the requirements, meet the compliance. Okay.
Fantastic, thank you. So just in summary, every service provider, we've mentioned regulator, we've mentioned regulator requirements. Every service provider definitely abides by certain regulatory standards. And you as a subscriber or a user can actually ask, like you mentioned, you can verify, and you can request for data encryption at several levels for your data to be safeguarded. Because even though your data is hosted on a shared infrastructure, it remains your data, and you have the right to ask, insist, but at the end of the day, regulators' requirement must be followed. So I'll say again, you are in safe hands, fear not. I believe we are done with questions. I don't know if there are any more questions. No more. Fantastic. Okay, someone's hand is raised. Do you want someone in the crowd? We have 5 minutes. Can we just, yes. We'll take a question and we're done.
More like a suggestion together with a question. So from a user perspective, dev guys, developers, people that are into fintech apps, I can see the reason why most Nigerians will go to AWS, DigitalOcean, these other cloud providers, simply because of the fact that they can Google, how do I deploy my app, and instantly they have a set of structures, a sort of instruction that guides them on how to get their app from their PC to that cloud. I don't know if I have done that myself. I've not seen any that tells me how to deploy to any of the Nigerian cloud providers. I don't know if there's any provision by the industry to have these tutorials on YouTube or some of this free channel medium where in-house developers can quickly check, how do I deploy an app to, how can I set up a droplet on and instantly get their app up and running?
All right. Okay, thanks. As you said, it's a suggestion and a comment. So someone want to speak to that, or do we just take it as something we'll take home?
Okay, I mean, I can quickly touch on that. Like you said, there are major cloud service providers out there, AWS, Microsoft Azure, but also, you're also familiar with the Microsoft Azure Stack, right? The Microsoft Azure Stack, for example, is hosted in our data center. So when you are thinking of deploying in cloud or using cloud resources, you are using a resource deployed, a stack by Microsoft deployed in my data center. So the processes of application hosting, application development, you are very familiar with it. And like my colleague said, managed services is very important. So when you want to take some resources from us or from him, for example, it's a hand-holding exercise. You have interactions with us, you have access to our technical engineers, you have opportunities where you have solutions architects that can work with you in an onboarding phase where you get familiar with the environment, the dashboards, and all that. And as a result of that, we help you through that journey of moving your data or moving your services into the cloud environment. So yes, we say cloud infrastructure, we say all this, but one of the targets that we see or we try to achieve is having the likes of the Microsoft and the AWSs and the likes, have them come local. So it's not that these services are subscribed out there. The foundation, the knowledge exists for developers, etc., but the infrastructure itself is localized to our environment. I don't know if you want to touch on that as well.
Okay, so thank you. I think he has touched on, majority of the points that you raised. Well, one of the things I also like to, let you understand is a journey for the African market. So we are in that journey. AWS and Azure and DigitalOcean, those guys have already played in a mature market. So we are in that journey. And if you notice, you've done deployments, for example. No two processes are the same. So the way you do it on Azure is different from the way you do it on AWS and all that. So that's where the hand-holding that he spoke about, comes in. Yes, we need to do more in terms of bringing out some of those manuals and making it more accessible to developers, to guys that, want to deploy containers or microservices or any of the likes into our platform. Yes, we need to do that. And it's something that is, is work in progress. It's something that is ongoing, but it's a hand-holding process for us for now, because yes, we can take you to those services, but we are also building local content. We are also building our own interfaces. We are also building our own billing systems, that will more be suited to the African market. So it's a journey that we have taken. It's a journey that we are on. And one of the things I will encourage, developers to do is to engage. When you engage, you understand how the model. Because, for example, on AWS, you can consume and pay later. In Nigeria, one of the major challenges with billing is that a customer will finish consuming your service, and 3 months you are still chasing. They've not paid for the ones they've consumed. So some of the providers like us, one of the things that we are trying to now do also is to change that model. So the moment you spin up a service, you pay for it. So these are conversations that we can have maybe outside this, but we are in that journey. Thank you.
All right, I hope that's responded. Okay, without further ado, we'll close the panel at this point. Thank you very much, and let's take some pictures.